Hello ma'am, I'm Benji Claveria from BS Ed 2A. This is a speech of Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream. I'm happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation of Proclamations. This momentous degree came as a crisp beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flame of withering injustice. It came as to a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of Negro is still sadly crippled by manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro still languishes in the corner of American society, find himself an exiled in his own land. And so we come here today a dramatized of shameful condition. And since we come to our nation capital to cash a check, when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent word of the Constitution and Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to follow her. This note was promised that all men, yes, black men as well white men, will be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizen of color and concern. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so, we've come to cash this check. A check will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of the justice. We have also come this hallowed spot and remind America of first urgency of now. This is no time to engage the luxury of calling off or take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make the promises democracy. Now is the time to rise the dark of this desolate valley of segregation to sunlight path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice, solid rock to brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all God's children. It would be fatal for a nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This withering summer of Negroes' illegitimate discontent will not pass until there is an inauguration autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not end, but the beginning, and those who hope the Negroes needed to blow off steam and will not be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. And there will be neither rest, not tranquility in America until the Negro granted citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of our nation until the bright day of justice emerge. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must be the guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow to creative protests to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to majesty heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous militancy which is engulfed the Negro community must not lead us the distrust of all white people, for many are white brothers, as the evidence by their presence here today have come to realize their destiny is tied up with our destiny, and they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone, and as we walk, we must make the pledge that shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the votes of civil rights when we satisfied. We can never satisfied as long Negro is victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our brothers, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the city. We cannot be satisfied as long as Negros' basic mobility from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children were stripped of their selfhood and robbed in their dignity by signs stating, "For whites only." We cannot be satisfied as long as Negro Mississippi cannot vote and Negro is New York believes he has nothing for which to vote. No, no, we are not satisfied and will not be satisfied until justice roars down like a waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some one of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells, and some of you have come from areas where your guests for freedom left you battered in the storms of persecution, and staggered by winds of policy brutality. You have been the veterans of creation suffering, continue to work with the faith on unfair suffering and redemptive. Go back to Mississippi, go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow the situation will be changed. Let us not wallow to valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends. And so even though we face difficulties today, tomorrow, I still have dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in American dream. I have dreamed that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold those truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have dreamed that one day the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together in table of brotherhood. I have dreamed that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of appropriation, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have dreamed my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have dreamed that one day down in Alabama with his vicious racist, with is a governor having lips, dripping with the words of interposition and the nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as a sister and brothers. I have a dream today. I have dreamed that one day every valley shall be exalted and every hill mountain shall be made low. The rough place will be made plain in the crooked place will be straight. And the glory of Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. These are hope, and this is a faith that I go back to the south with. With this faith will be able to view on mountain despair as well, of hope. With this faith, we able to transform the jangling discord of nation and a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we'll be free one day. And this will be the day that all God's children will be able to sing with a new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of the liberty of thee, sing, land they my fathers died, long of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountains let freedom ring. And if America is to be great nation, this will become true. And so let freedom ring from the produce hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped rocks of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the Caribbean slopes of California. But not only that. Let freedom ring from the Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from the Rock Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from the ever hill and molehill of the Mississippi. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. And when this happens, and when all of the freedom ring, let ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state of every city, we're able to speed up the day when all God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hand and sing in the words of Old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are the free at last. That's all, ma'am. Thank you.